Let's begin. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Sky High Stories. The soft glow of the evening lamp filled the living room when Daniel walked in, his lips curved in a gentle, almost nervous smile. In his hands was a beautifully wrapped box, covered in ivory paper with a silver ribbon tied carefully on top. Emily noticed immediately, the way he held it, as if it was something precious, something fragile. Her heart skipped before he even said a word. "This is for you," Daniel said quietly, his voice warm with affection. "Happy anniversary, Emily." For a moment, she just stared at him. 12 years of marriage flashed through her mind in fragments, late-night conversations, shared dreams, small arguments that ended in laughter, and the countless ordinary days that had slowly built an extraordinary bond. She took the box from his hands, feeling the familiar comfort of his presence, the unspoken promise that had always existed between them. As she untied the ribbon and lifted the lid, her breath caught. Inside lay a stunning anniversary dress, elegant, graceful, and unmistakably chosen with care. The fabric shimmered softly under the light, a deep shade that reminded her of the night sky on the day they first met. It wasn't just beautiful, it felt personal, as if Daniel had seen her not just as his wife, but as the woman she had always been beneath the roles and responsibilities. Emily's fingers brushed the fabric, and her eyes filled with tears. This dress wasn't about luxury or cost. It symbolized effort, attention, and love. It told her that after all these years, she was still seen, still desired, still chosen. She remembered the early days of their marriage, when Daniel would surprise her with small gestures, handwritten notes, spontaneous dinners, promises whispered in the dark. The dress felt like a return to that tenderness. "You like it?" Daniel asked, watching her closely. "I love it," Emily replied, her voice trembling with emotion. She stepped closer and hugged him tightly, resting her head against his chest. In that moment, she felt secure, valued, and deeply loved. The world outside faded away, leaving only the quiet certainty of their bond. As she imagined wearing the dress on their anniversary night, standing beside him with confidence and pride, Emily smiled. She had no idea that this symbol of love would soon become the center of an unexpected storm, but for now, it was perfect. The evening of their anniversary arrived wrapped in quiet excitement. Soft music played in the background as Emily stood in front of the mirror, carefully pinning her hair and applying a touch of makeup. Her heart felt light, almost youthful, as she imagined Daniel's reaction when he would see her in the dress he had chosen so thoughtfully. Tonight was meant to be special, a reminder of love, commitment, and everything they had built together. With a small smile, Emily walked to the wardrobe and opened it, already picturing the dress draped over her. The hanger swayed slightly as the door swung open. Her smile froze. The space where the dress should have been was empty. At first, she laughed softly to herself, thinking she must have moved it earlier. She checked the other side of the wardrobe, then the drawer below, then behind her other clothes. Nothing. The air around her suddenly felt heavier, the music fading into a distant hum. Her hands paused mid-search as a strange unease settled in her chest. "Maybe I put it somewhere else," she whispered, though doubt had already begun to creep in. Emily retraced her steps, checking the guest room, the laundry basket, even the coat closet. With every empty space, confusion deepened into worry. The excitement she had carried all evening slowly unraveled, replaced by an uncomfortable knot of questions. The dress hadn't just vanished, it had been taken. Just then, there was a soft knock at the open door. Grace, their neighbor, stood there with a friendly smile, holding a package meant for the apartment next door. "Oh, sorry to interrupt," Grace said casually, her eyes drifting toward the wardrobe. "I think I saw someone in here earlier. Daniel's sister, right? Sophia?" Emily's breath caught. "Sophia was here?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Yes," Grace replied without a second thought. She was carrying something covered in a garment bag. "I thought it was yours." The words echoed in Emily's mind long after Grace had left. An uncomfortable silence filled the room, thick and unsettling. Emily sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the open wardrobe. Unease turned into a quiet, aching realization. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. As the clock ticked closer to their dinner reservation, Emily felt the joy of the evening slip away. The missing dress was more than fabric now, it was the first crack in what she had believed was a perfect moment. As Emily sat alone in the quiet bedroom, her thoughts drifted backward, unraveling memories she had long tried to ignore. Sophia had never hidden her dislike, it had simply worn different masks over the years. From the very beginning, there had been a chill in her smiles, a sharpness in her words that always cut just enough to leave a mark without drawing blood. Emily remembered their first family dinner after the wedding. Sophia had looked her up and down before offering a polite smile. "You're simpler than I imagined," she had said, her tone light, almost playful, yet undeniably dismissive. Daniel had laughed it off, unaware of how deeply the words had lodged themselves in Emily's heart. There were countless moments like that. Sophia comparing Emily to Daniel's ex, praising the woman's career and confidence just a little too enthusiastically. "She really knew how to carry herself," Sophia would say, glancing meaningfully at Emily's modest dress. Each comment was subtle, easy to deny, yet heavy with judgment. Jealousy often shimmered beneath the surface, especially when Daniel showed affection toward his wife. Despite it all, Emily had tried. She had chosen patience over confrontation, believing harmony was worth the effort. She attended family gatherings, brought thoughtful gifts, and defended Sophia when others criticized her. She told herself that acceptance would come with time, that love could soften even the coldest hearts. But the tension never truly faded. Instead, it grew sharper, more deliberate. Sophia's smiles became tighter, her presence heavier. She would insert herself into decisions that weren't hers, question Emily's choices, and subtly undermine her in front of family. Every time Daniel praised Emily, Sophia found a way to redirect the attention. Emily remembered one afternoon when Sophia had whispered, "You're lucky Daniel chose you. Not everyone gets that chance." The words sounded kind, but the message was clear. Emily was temporary, replaceable, unworthy. Now, sitting on the edge of the bed, Emily felt those memories press down on her chest. The missing dress no longer felt like an accident. It felt like a continuation, a deliberate crossing of boundaries that had been ignored for too long. The tension between sister-in-law and wife had been building silently, patiently, waiting for a moment like this to surface. And as Emily stared at the empty wardrobe, she realized something painful but undeniable. Sophia had never accepted her, and perhaps she never would. Daniel found Emily sitting quietly on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the floor. One look at her face told him something was wrong. The excitement he had expected to see, the smile, the sparkle, was gone, replaced by a stillness that unsettled him. "Emily," he asked softly, "why aren't you dressed yet? We're going to be late." She lifted her eyes slowly, and in them he saw hesitation, hurt, and a struggle to find the right words. For a brief moment, she considered staying silent, preserving the peace as she always had. But the weight in her chest made it impossible. "The dress," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's gone." Daniel frowned. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "I checked everywhere," Emily said, her words steady but fragile. "It's not in the wardrobe. It's not anywhere in the house." Confusion crossed Daniel's face, quickly followed by disbelief. "That doesn't make sense. You just had it." Emily took a deep breath, bracing herself. "Grace came by earlier," she continued. "She said she saw Sophia here. She was carrying a garment bag." The room seemed to go very quiet. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "Sophia?" he repeated, as if saying the name out loud might change its meaning. "She wouldn't, Emily, you must be mistaken." Emily shook her head. "I wish I were." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. His eyes dropped to the floor, then lifted again, searching Emily's face for certainty. When he spoke again, his voice betrayed him. It wavered, just slightly, but enough for Emily to notice. "Why would my sister take your dress?" he asked, the words uneven, caught between denial and fear. That was the moment. The exact instant when his voice trembled, when the truth slipped through the cracks of his certainty. Emily felt a sharp ache in her chest, not satisfaction, not relief, but sorrow. She had never wanted to stand between him and his family. "I don't know," Emily replied quietly. But she did. Daniel turned away, running a hand through his hair. Inside him, a storm raged. Sophia was his sister, the person he had protected since childhood, the one who had always stood by him. Emily was his wife, the woman he loved, the partner he had chosen, the person who trusted him to stand up for her. His thoughts collided painfully. If he believed Emily, he had to confront Sophia. If he didn't, he would betray the woman sitting in front of him, hurting in silence. "This can't be happening," he muttered, more to himself than to Emily. "I didn't want to ruin tonight," Emily said, her voice breaking despite her efforts. "But I couldn't pretend nothing was wrong." Daniel turned back to her, his eyes dark with emotion. Shock, confusion, and guilt flickered across his face. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly, as if grounding himself. "I believe you," he finally said, though the words came heavy with consequence. And in that moment, both of them understood. The missing dress had forced a truth neither of them could ignore anymore. Daniel didn't confront Sophia directly that night. Instead, he did what felt safer, he called her. The phone rang twice before she answered, her voice light, almost cheerful, as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey, Danny," Sophia said. "What's up?" Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Did you stop by the apartment today?" he asked, trying to sound casual. There was a brief pause. "Yes," she replied smoothly. "I needed to grab something Mom asked for." "Why? And, did you take anything else?" Daniel pressed. Sophia laughed softly. "Take? Of course not. Why would you even ask me that?" Emily watched from across the room, her heart sinking with every word. Sophia's tone was flawless, innocent, offended, almost hurt. Daniel glanced at Emily, then turned slightly away, lowering his voice. "She thinks you might have taken her anniversary dress," he said. Sophia's response came quickly. "That's ridiculous. Maybe she misplaced it. You know how emotional she gets." The words were sharp beneath their sweetness. "I would never do something like that." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "All right," he said, the edge in his voice dulled by uncertainty. "I just needed to ask." When the call ended, silence flooded the room. Daniel didn't look at Emily right away. He stood still, phone in hand, as if weighing two truths and unsure which one to carry. "She denies it," he finally said. Emily nodded slowly. She had expected this. What she hadn't expected was the hollow ache that followed, the realization that denial had been enough to shake his certainty. The anniversary dinner reservation came and went unnoticed. The candles on the table burned down, untouched. The evening they had imagined dissolved quietly into disappointment. When they finally sat down across from each other, the distance felt wider than the table between them. "I just don't understand why she would do that," Daniel said, more frustrated than firm. "And I don't understand why I'm not being believed," Emily replied softly. Her words hung in the air, unanswered. Daniel tried to salvage the night, suggesting they eat, promising they'd talk later, but the magic was gone. Every bite tasted like regret. Emily smiled when she was expected to, but inside she felt small, dismissed, and exposed. The dress had been taken, but something else had been lost too. Emily felt unheard, as though her pain had been weighed and found inconvenient. She had needed protection, reassurance, a clear stand, and instead, she had been met with excuses and silence. As the night ended without celebration, Emily realized the truth with painful clarity. The evening wasn't ruined by the missing dress. It was broken by the feeling that she stood alone. The next morning, Emily called Olivia, her best friend since college, seeking solace in a voice that always understood. Olivia didn't ask questions or offer empty reassurances, she listened. When Emily recounted the missing dress, the uncomfortable dinner, and Sophia's denial, Olivia's tone shifted from sympathy to quiet determination. "Emily," she said firmly, "this isn't just about a dress. Sophia has been crossing boundaries for years. You can't keep apologizing for her behavior. You need to stand up, for yourself, for Daniel, for your marriage." Her words resonated deeply. Emily realized she had been minimizing her own feelings, always excusing Sophia's jealousy, always trying to keep the peace. For the first time, she considered that perhaps her discomfort was valid and that she deserved to be seen, not just tolerated. Later that day, she met Liam, her childhood friend, for coffee. Liam had always been observant, never shy about speaking uncomfortable truths. When she told him the story, he leaned back, shaking his head. "I'm not surprised. You've been walking on eggshells around them for years. Sophia sees weakness and takes advantage." Emily nodded, a mixture of relief and shame washing over her. Finally, someone acknowledged what she had felt all along. Determined to confirm the truth about the dress, Emily decided to visit the boutique where Daniel had purchased it. Nathan, the store manager, greeted her warmly and listened as she explained the situation. "I remember the dress," Nathan said, a hint of concern in his voice. "It was delivered earlier this morning, and I personally wrapped it for Daniel. Someone, another family member, called asking to pick it up. I had to confirm it with Daniel before handing it over." Emily's heart sank. Nathan's confirmation left no room for doubt. The dress hadn't vanished by accident. Sophia had deliberately taken it, using manipulation and timing to create confusion. Sitting quietly afterward, Emily reflected on patterns she had previously ignored. The subtle insults, the comparisons, the constant undermining, all pointed to the same truth. Sophia's jealousy and disregard for her boundaries were not isolated incidents. For the first time, Emily felt a shift within herself. The sadness and frustration were still there, but beneath them grew a sense of clarity and strength. She began to understand that she had been complicit in her own discomfort, excusing behavior that should never have been acceptable. This was the start of her emotional growth. With the support of friends who saw what family ignored, Emily began to reclaim her voice, her confidence, and her sense of self-worth. For the first time in years, she realized she didn't have to accept the invisible chains that Sophia had tried to wrap around her life. The tension had been simmering long enough. Daniel couldn't ignore it anymore, and neither could Emily. That evening, he decided to confront Sophia openly, leaving no room for ambiguity. He called her, his voice steady but firm, and asked her to come over immediately. When Sophia arrived, she entered the apartment with a practiced smile, radiating calm as if nothing had happened. But Daniel didn't return the warmth. Instead, he stood by the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "Sophia," he began, his tone clipped, "we need to talk. Now." Her smile faltered slightly. "Oh, what is this about?" she asked, though her curiosity betrayed her. "The dress," Daniel said. "The one I bought Emily for our anniversary. Did you take it?" Sophia's expression shifted seamlessly from mock innocence to offense. "Take it? I would never do that. You're imagining things, Daniel." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Emily has confirmed it. Grace confirmed it. Nathan from the boutique confirmed it. Don't lie to me." The room seemed to grow smaller as the confrontation escalated. Sophia's lips pressed into a thin line, and then, with a subtle shrug, she tried to manipulate the situation. "I didn't mean anything by it. I only borrowed it for a moment. She'll understand, won't she?" Daniel's hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from frustration. "This isn't just a dress, Sophia. It's respect, trust, boundaries. You've crossed them repeatedly." At that moment, Margaret, their mother, entered the room quietly. She said nothing, standing silently in the corner. Her eyes flicked between her children, her expression unreadable. Her silence spoke volumes, an acknowledgement of Sophia's manipulations and perhaps a subtle judgment of her inaction in the past. Emily watched Daniel, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. For the first time, she saw him fully aware of the pattern, fully aware of what he had allowed to happen. She saw the weight of realization in his eyes, the understanding that by failing to protect her sooner, he had almost lost the woman he loved. Finally, Daniel exhaled, a mixture of anger and sorrow in his gaze. "Sophia, this ends now. You cannot disrespect Emily, or me, like this ever again. Choose your behavior, or leave." Sophia's face paled slightly, and she said nothing. The tension was thick, but Daniel's stance left no room for argument. As the door closed behind Sophia, Daniel turned to Emily. "I should have seen this sooner," he admitted quietly. "I almost lost you over something I didn't confront before." Emily felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of relief and pride. Daniel had chosen her. It wasn't just about the dress anymore, it was about love, respect, and boundaries. And for the first time in a long while, Emily felt truly protected. After the confrontation with Sophia, Emily sat quietly in their bedroom, the evening light soft on her face. The missing dress, the stolen moment, the tension, it all replayed in her mind. But now, through the haze of hurt and anger, a new clarity emerged. The dress had never been just a piece of fabric. It had been a symbol, a reflection of respect, boundaries, and the recognition of her worth. For years, Emily had excused small slights, overlooked manipulations, and silenced her own feelings to keep the family peace. She realized now that her self-worth had never depended on anyone else's approval. The dress had merely highlighted what she had been asking for all along: acknowledgement, honesty, and care. She thought about Daniel, his trembling voice, the way he finally stood for her. She understood that love was more than gifts and words, it was protection, trust, and commitment. The dress had forced a confrontation that revealed patterns she could no longer ignore, giving her the courage to assert herself without guilt. Emily smiled softly, feeling a sense of empowerment she hadn't felt in years. She had been tested, but she had also grown. The dress, once a source of anxiety, now represented her strength, her boundaries, and the respect she deserved in her marriage. For the first time that evening, she felt at peace, not because the conflict had disappeared, but because she had finally found her voice. The dress was gone, yet everything it had symbolized remained: her dignity, her love, and her unwavering resolve. Emily took a deep breath and whispered to herself, I am worth being chosen, always. The lesson was clear, the dress had been a catalyst, but the real gift was her own realization of self-respect and empowerment. The evening after the confrontation felt different. The tension that had loomed over Emily and Daniel's home had eased, replaced by a quiet sense of understanding. Daniel sat beside Emily on the couch, his hand holding hers gently, his voice still tinged with the memory of that earlier tremble, but steadier now. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," he said softly. "I almost let you feel unprotected, and that's on me." Emily smiled, a mixture of relief and love in her eyes. "It's okay," she replied. "We've faced it now. That's what matters." Together, they discussed boundaries with Sophia, clear, firm, and non-negotiable. Emily spoke openly about what she would no longer tolerate, and Daniel assured her that he stood with her. Sophia, they agreed, would no longer be allowed to manipulate or cross lines within their home. That night, they didn't have a lavish anniversary dinner or sparkling candles. Instead, they shared a quiet meal, side by side, the weight of unspoken words lifted. Daniel watched Emily laugh softly at a memory, feeling the depth of love that had brought them together. Emily felt seen, valued, and safe, not because of gifts, but because of respect, trust, and mutual commitment. In that moment, the trembling voice of doubt and fear faded, replaced by a stronger, more enduring bond. Emily had grown into her strength, and Daniel had realized the gravity of protecting the love they shared. As they held each other close, Emily knew that life would bring challenges, but together, they could face them. The anniversary dress had vanished, but what remained was far more precious: hope, healing, and a love rooted in respect. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Sky High Stories.